So far in this camp, we've only been working with one sprite, our robot. Today, we're going to look at why you would have more than one sprite and how you can use sprite interactions. To begin with, let's think about why multiple sprites might be used. You might want more characters for your story, or maybe you want your video game to have more than one player. For modeling Mindstorm robots, maybe I want to see what will happen if two robots interact with each other. Maybe I want my robot to do a series of tasks, and I want to represent each of the tasks with a different sprite. Today, I think I want to use different sprites to test out different versions of my code at once, and then maybe I'll try to program what happens when different robots collide. Like with costumes, there are multiple ways to make a new sprite's appearance different. Normally, I might use the paintbrush icon to make the sprite's costume myself. You can also pick a sprite from Scratch's library. Neither of these options are permanent, and you can always alter the sprite or what it looks like later. However, because I want this sprite to have the same costumes as my other sprite, I'm going to duplicate my first sprite instead of making a completely new one. If we look inside, we can see that all the code in the first sprite has also been duplicated or copied directly. If something gets messed up, you can also easily copy and paste your code by dragging it from your first sprite to any of your other sprites, like this. And so if we look in our first sprite, we can see that that code has been brought over. I'm going to experiment with my mouse clicker code from last time. I want this new sprite to move faster than my other sprite so that I can see what happens. So let's increase this from 5 steps to 10 steps and see what it looks like. Wow, that's kind of cool. It would be cooler, though, if the robots bounced off each other whenever they collided. So for this, we're going to repurpose some of our old color sensing code. If you feel like you can't tell the difference between the two robots, you can click on the sprite and it'll highlight it in blue, or you can go into the costume of your second sprite and alter them in some way to make it look different from our first. Personally, I kind of like it when they look the same, so I'm just going to keep it as is. So let's take our old color conditioning code. I'm just going to go to our first sprite just as a tradition. And I'm going to grab my old color sensing code. Here it is. If you forgot to copy your old code or you don't have it anymore, don't stress, you can just go ahead and recreate it. So let's just get rid of the repeat until, because we want this program to run forever. I'm going to replace these conditionals, the ones that to tell the robot to switch lines, with ones that are describing hitting another robot or hitting another sprite. So I'm going to get rid of color touching this, color touching that. And I'm actually going to get rid of this second if else block too, because we only really have one thing it needs to be looking for. It just needs to be looking as to whether it's touching or hitting another one of the robots. So we don't have two conditions that we need to check for. So we're going to tell it that if it's touching the sprite too, it'll always move. We're going to add in our forever block so that this runs until we stop the program. And then we have this. So this is what it looks like for now. We also, though, want to connect it with our old code that's going to bring it towards the mouse pointer. So we'll just get rid of this move forward, and we'll tell it to point toward the mouse clicker and move 5 steps when it's clicked. So then that should be how we can combine our two pieces of code together. And then, of course, what I want sprite 1 to do, I want sprite 2 to do. So we're going to bring it over to sprite 2. If you're bringing in new code with a new when flag clicked block, make sure you get rid of the old one or else they'll try to override each other. You're also going to alter the touching sprite 2 block to say touching sprite 1 because it's not going to ever read that as true if you have it as itself. So let's run our code. So when we run the program, we can see that the robots are trying to turn away from each other, but they're getting stuck in a cycle because turning isn't pushing them away fast enough. Let's try another method then. What if we use the code we used earlier to point at the mouse pointer? Stop this. Move back to sprite 1 just for fun. We could tell the robot that when it hits another robot, it should turn in the opposite direction and move away for a certain distance before going towards the mouse pointer again. So, first, we're going to get it to turn all the way by telling it to point to the other robot. So, point towards sprite 2. And then turn 180 degrees. So turn all the way around. Oh, we can just change that. And then let's say it's going to turn towards the robot it's hit, turn all the way away, and let's have it move away so that it doesn't get stuck in this loop of where it's turning, but it's still touching no matter what it does. I'm going to take my repeat block and have it move 5 increments of 5 steps. Because again, I don't really like the teleporting motion, so I like to see my robots glide away from each other. And let's share this code with our other robot. We don't want this code anymore. And we're going to change sprite 2 to sprite 1 so that it works with this sprite. Let's see how it works. Oh, cool, it actually works. When the robots hit each other, they bounce off, move a little bit away, and then continue to follow the mouse pointer. That's pretty cool. So if you notice during this example, it was really helpful to have our old code here for future use. Another thing that we can do to make our code better for the future is documentation, which is explaining what your code does so that future you or other people can use it. We can do that here with comments explaining the purpose of your code. Oh, oops. Let's try again. There we go. So you can make a comment by tapping with both of your fingers on the trackpad. The same button that you would use to duplicate down here, you're going to use up here to add comment. And you can drag the comment around. And so I'm going to say code designed to react to collisions with other robot. I'm going to put this up here so that I can remember what it does. Pause the video now and write a quick comment about what our code does in your own words. Feel free to add more comments for each of the different parts, or make other comments for the other code we've already created. Okay, so to finish out today, we're going to go over one more tool in our toolbox, messages. Messages can help you make your sprites do several things at once, or make a sprite do something based on what a different sprite senses. For example, we could send a message out to whenever the first robot touches the edge and tell the other robot to change colors when it receives that message. There's no block that says when a different sprite hits the edge, but we can still get that effect by using messages. You can find the messages block in the events category, and you can tell a block to do something when it receives a message, or to send a message, and then wait for something else to happen. So for your ending task today, let's try to use messages somehow in your programming. It's up to you, so be creative. I'm looking forward to seeing your ideas in action in your projects. And if you're struggling, feel free to shoot an email to frc5587@gmail.com. See you tomorrow!